Hi, I've seen more folks join, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Um, First, let me introduce myself, and then let's talk about a few housekeeping items. I'm Cherise Branch. I'm a family nurse practitioner, and I've been a family nurse practitioner since 1999. The last 5 to 6 years, I've practiced functional medicine. My background is in internal medicine. And for a longer story or for a longer time frame than we have here, because of how I felt 5 to 6 years ago, it prompted me to dive a little deeper into my own health to get myself back into on track, because I was tired of feeling fluffy, flabby, forgetful, fatigued, all of the above. So functional medicine has brought a significant amount of joy to my life and my family's life, and I feel it has really enabled us to achieve the vibrancy that we were after. And we feel more secure in our health and how we're being proactive in taking care of ourselves. My husband owns Central Drug Compounding and Wellness. And again, I have a functional medicine practice called Wellness.Balance.You. I became a fellow with the American Anti-Aging and Metabolic Medicine group in 2018, and I'm very proud of achieving that fellowship. Again, functional medicine has given me so many more tools in my toolbox when I'm looking at the whole patient and searching for root cause of their problem or their disease, rather than simply masking things with a prescription and treating their symptoms. So that's a little bit about me. We are recording today's webinar. So thus I'm going to ask you to mute your microphones, and I'm going to be happy to take questions and answers after we get through the slides. Today, and let me just share my screen. Today, we're going to be talking about fasting, in particular, the fasting mimicking diet, and how it can be beneficial for our heart health. That's critical, not critical, but I think it was an appropriately timed webinar for February, which is American Heart Health Month. And that's what we're going to be focused on today, talking about fasting and its impact on our heart health. So we're going to get going now. And again, please mute so we don't have any background noise. Thank you so much. So Prolon is the first fasting mimicking diet patented that gives us the beneficial effects of fasting, but yet making that fasting period safe. And I wouldn't necessarily say pleasant, but definitely bearable with a grin. Prolon is a proprietary 5-day fasting mimicking diet that includes plant-based soups, crackers, olives, particular carb drink mixes, supplements. And it provides about 750 calories on day 2 through 5 and 1,100 calories the very first day. It's based on, it is a scientifically studied fast based on innovative research carried out at the University of Southern California's Longevity Institute and their Diabetes and Obesity Research Institute, hence the tie-in to American Heart Health Month. So this revolutionary meal plan has been scientifically designed, that's a big deal, and it's been clinically tested to mimic the effects of fasting, while yet it still provides daily nourishment and somewhat a feeling of satisfaction. So first, and you feel free to type in the comments, what are your goals? Take time to think about it. Why are you here? Are you tuning in because of concern about your body weight, or perhaps somebody got a hold of you with some calipers and you've had your body fat measured? Or my favorite is the closet meter. We may not like the scale, but we can't avoid it when our blue jeans or our favorite pair of shorts don't fit quite as nicely and comfortably around our waist. Or maybe we went to our provider and we got some less than stellar news about our blood sugar, or perhaps our cholesterol numbers. So again, take a moment to think, so why are you here? Why are you taking time over your lunch? Because as we all know, our most precious commodity is time. And here you are sharing your lunch hour with me. And I do appreciate that. So think about, what are your goals? And you'll be surprised. A lot of folks come to this talk because they're interested in weight loss. And the moral of the story is you're going to learn about how fasting can be impactful, not just about your weight, not just for your weight, but obviously that's a nice side benefit. So have you ever said, man, I can't lose body fat, my weight, the scale's staying the same, but I'm worried about fasting or changing my eating. I don't want to lose lean muscle mass. I don't want to screw up my metabolism. That's one I hear a lot. Or I also hear, hey, I'm just trying to feel or achieve higher energy levels or more vitality. Some people actually do come in and use the word, I'm looking to feel rejuvenated. Well, it's no secret, fasting has been around for thousands of years. It's biblical, right? And Charisse tends to be a stickler for definitions, so you'll have to bear with me. So intermittent fasting, think of it as including all kinds of fasting periods as well as time-restricted eating. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the difference between the two. To me, intermittent fasting, that term is used a little bit too loosely. Just like some folks will say, hey, I'm doing the Mediterranean diet, or I'm doing dirty keto, or I'm eating in moderation. That really allows people to improvise and pick and choose their own periods of fasting that can range from whatever block of hours. And it's a little too loosey-goosey for my taste, because as a provider, you want to be scientifically and research based. We're a stickler for definitions, right? So we think in abstaining from food or drink, all of the things that I just mentioned are equal, but in fact, they're not. So if you consider fasting the period necessary to change over from sugar burning mode to fat burning mode, then only fasting 48 to 72 hours, that can be considered fasting. And it has to be at least that long to kick in the activation of regeneration or cellular regeneration within the body. It doesn't mean that shorter periods of fasting or time-restricted eating are not beneficial. It just means, again, because Charisse doesn't like to throw around the terms loosey-goosey. Incidentally, the most common intermittent fasting that I see patients come to me on are something called the 5-2 diet or 5-2 plan. And that's essentially when people 2 days out of the week will eat about 500 calories. And the other 5 days of the week, they'll consume, say, their usual 1,800 to 2,000 calories. On the screen, you see some definitions of fasting. Again, I'm a stickler for definitions. Fasting, abstaining from food and beverage. Biological fasting has to do with triggering food sensing pathways. PKA, IGF-1 stands for insulin-like growth factor, and mTOR. So the sensing pathways can be triggered for up to 24 hours after the last meal. So technically, biological fasting doesn't even start until 24 hours after the last bite of food has passed your lips. Or as many people ask me, well, what about the creamer in my coffee? That's considered triggering food sensing pathways. So yes, creamer in the coffee, you are not fasting. Again, you hear about juice fasts, or I'm on the cabbage soup diet/fast. Those are truly not fast, because those food triggering pathways, food sensing pathways are triggered. What I have used in my practice, and I've used personally as well as, we're going to call it FMD, the fasting mimicking diet. Again, it is a program that's based on scientific research by a gentleman named Dr. Walter Longo, who's head of the Institute of Longevity at University of Southern California. To me, fasting is all about my metabolic health. cardiometabolic health, if you want to get particular. That goes into why we're talking about this month of February. This does have to do with our blood sugar levels, our cholesterol numbers, and again, promoting or investing in our own longevity. You can see by the second primate over there to the left, the fasting mimicking diet we're talking about today has definitely been shown to promote overall metabolic health, cellular cleanup, cellular regeneration, and it has been scientifically shown to impact markers like that IGF-1 that are shown to be related to increasing human longevity and our health span. So it's not just about living a long time laying in a nursing home bed at 90. It's about being able to walk, go to DTAR Health Center, walk on the treadmill, visiting with family and friends, and being vibrant at 90 and well into our 90s or even 100. I added this slide this morning. This is Dr. Walter Longo's book. If you take anything away from this talk, forget the fasting mimicking diet, even though that's important and that's what we're here to talk about. This is a wonderful book that can guide we South Texans about how should we really eat on a daily basis. So it's called the Longevity Diet. It too is based on years and years of research by Dr. Longo. The takeaway is we have to eat to live and be mindful about how we are eating every day. And this book can give us some instructions on that. It's an easy read. You'll enjoy it. It talks a little bit about Dr. Longo's upbringing as well. And it's pretty quick to buzz through. So fasting, and I need to update this slide, fasting in 2018 was the #1 diet pattern. And the odds are the reason why you're here, you've heard about fasting. Again, we already went through some of the definitions. We think of fasting as abstinence from eating, but the potential medical benefits have increasingly been substantiated in both animal and now human research subjects. And this even includes in boosting brain power. So different types of quote unquote diets or food plans that we've also heard about in addition to fasting, and these you can give a whole other talk on these in and of themselves. We've heard of paleo, which is one of my favorites I use often in my practice. Paleo is a type of food plan based on people, like say patients, forgive me, eating the diet that early humans ate, mainly meat, fish, veggies, fruit, and excluding dairy and excluding grain products, and definitely excluding processed foods. You've heard of the Whole30 food plan. That was started in April 2009 by a female, of course, as a 30-day self-experiment as a short-term reset. And the Whole30 is kind of like the elimination diet, not kind of, the elimination diet I speak to with my patients. It's eliminating foods for 30 days that scientific literature has deemed to be problematic. For example, gluten, dairy, soy. And then, so you're off of all of those things for at least 30 days. And then you can slowly incorporate them back in, spacing them apart at least 5 to 7 days before you reintroduce a new food. And you pay attention to your health and how you're feeling and your mindset as you reintroduce certain groups of food. We've heard of plant-based diets, which are obviously food plans based mostly or entirely of foods derived from plants, such as veggies, grain, nuts, seeds, roots, legumes, fruits, with very few or no animal products. So vegan diets have absolutely no food from animal sources, whereas vegetarian diets, you will see them include egg or dairy or one or the other, or both. Now, this is not an eating pattern that I show on this slide, but again, Dr. Longo in that book, The Longevity Diet, will talk about the pescatarian diet, which strikes terror in those of us here from South Texas. I'm from Hallettsville. originally, which is Lavaca County, which is the cow, which means you can guess I was raised on red meat at Shiner Bock beer and throw in a kolache as a treat, right? Most of my patients have heard me say that before. The pescatarian diet is very, very far removed from that. And that is how Dr. Longo was raised. His grandparents were in southern Italy. He was born in northern Italy. And it is semi-vegetarian. It does include eggs and dairy and seafood. But when you're talking about seafood, these folks are not sitting down to fried shrimp 3 or 4 nights a week. You're talking salmon maybe twice a week, fatty foods, fatty fish twice a week, no red meat. Okay, so that's the terror in the hearts of we folks from South Texas. So let's talk a little bit further about types of fasting. Some of these things listed, these 3 here, that you do get impact on your metabolic markers, like your cholesterol numbers and your blood sugar numbers. But again, on the bottom, the fasting mimicking diet, where you actually get some food over a 5-day period, is the only diet or food plan that truly mimics a prolonged water fast. But obviously, there are some big time benefits over a water only fast for 5 days. Again, when you go back to definitions with Charisse, time restricted eating, I like to think of eating all of your calories in a certain window. In my practice, unless someone is, let's say, an insulin dependent diabetic, and I talk to diabetics about their meds before recommending a particular food plan, and you should too if you're diabetic, before thinking about fasting or time restricted eating. At any rate, think about our grandparents. They didn't have all these things like fasting or time restricted eating. They just lived that way. They ate dinner at 7 o'clock. Those folks were on a fairly stringent budget. The lights were turned off early. So that last meal was at 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. They woke up. And for the most part, breakfast was going to be 12 hours later. You could think of that as they lived a 12-12. That's just what they did. These days, because we have food so easily accessible to us, and I'm not saying good food, I'm saying the standard American diet, fast food open 24 hours a day, Uber Eats, we could snap our fingers. I could be on this webinar and order something to be delivered to my door, which would probably get here before we were done. So this 12-12 thing is totally foreign to us, when in reality, it's just what our ancestors did. So I like to, in my practice, recommend us to live 12-12 time restricted eating, and perhaps, depending on your individual case, incorporating at least 2 days, perhaps 3, a 16-8 pattern of time restricted eating. So if you ate dinner at 7 o'clock in the evening, nothing would touch your lips other than black coffee, unsweetened tea, or water until 11 a.m. the next morning. That includes, yes, your fish oil or your collagen. That does include creamer in your coffee, because those things can trigger food sensing pathways. And remember, that's what we're all about, not triggering those pathways. Again, intermittent fasting is kind of like what I had mentioned earlier, maybe 1 or 2 non-consecutive days per week. We may choose to fast and not imbibe in any kind of or intake any type of calories. So again, to go over different types of eating plans, just basic calorie restriction, intermittent fasting, time restricted eating, all the way down to water only fasting, fasting mimicking diet. All of these things depicted, as you can see by this chart, they positively impact our blood sugar and our cholesterol, but they don't all protect our lean muscle mass. Obviously, we don't get food in all of them. They all impact us in terms of weight loss, but what impacts our longevity and what helps keep the weight off and maintain lean muscle mass? Again, the bottom one that you see has all the check marks in all the columns. It's something called the fasting mimicking diet, invented by Dr. Longo. It started with him researching yeast. That's kind of spooky. And then he moved to animal models, hence mice, and then we humans. Okay. The fasting mimicking diet, the first day of the what I call the dreaded, I call it affectionately the dreaded white box. The first day you get ballpark 1,100 calories, and day 2, 3, 4, and 5, you get ballpark 750 calories. The kicker is, because it is based on research, it's patented, your food sensing pathways are not triggered, even though you are eating that 1,100 calories that day or that 750 calories that day. Again, the first day, 1,100 calories, you're talking about 500 calories from complex carbs, 500 from healthy fats. It includes 25 grams of plant protein. Then you bump down on day 2, 3, and 4, 400 calories from complex carbs, 350-ish from healthy fats, and about 15 grams of plant-based protein overall for day 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the nutrients are key in this plan. And they include, again, it's scientifically based. The plant-based soup mixes, they're 80% fat, 10% protein, 10% carbs. During the 5 days on this particular fast, yes, you guessed it, alcohol is prohibited. The other question I get frequently is, may I please have my coffee? Yes, you may have coffee, but you have to limit it to 1 cup daily. Also, as a side note, for someone who has a nut allergy or sensitivity, it is very much nut-based. It's rich in nuts, so note to self. Also, there are a few days where you get a package of olives. So if you're not a big olive fan, that's also something to note. But again, when you're looking at water-based fasting as a prolonged fast, which I do not recommend, or this fasting mimicking diet, the dreaded white box, there's certain things that happen in this time frame. And you can see, here's some markers, not necessarily, we can go left to right. Weight loss, impactful on metabolic health. By day 3 to 4, you're looking at the body kicking into something called autophagy. Autophagy is the fancy word for the body performing cellular cleanup or cellular debris cleanup that then allows the bodily systems to function better. Again, when we're fasting, and you will be able to feel this, as I have done this fast now personally, probably about 6 times, it generally takes someone about 24 hours of fasting to run through their existing glycogen or glucose stores. And they then switch from burning glucose as their gasoline for fuel to burning fat for fuel, which is also known as ketosis. So why don't we just save the money and do a water only fast, right? What's the advantages of this box or food plan over water only fasting? With water only fasting, it's not as safe. You really should not do it at home. You have a higher risk of gallstone formation. And the big kicker for Charisse, well, really 2 big kickers. We're not preserving lean muscle mass when we water only fast, and we're definitely not getting our micro and macronutrients. Again, these disadvantages are why Dr. Longo's team developed this prolonged fasting mimicking diet. So that being said, the other reasons, to sum up, why did they develop this particular diet? They wanted to provide sufficient calories for people to fast so we, the people or patients, could fast safely outside of a clinic setting. They also wanted to incorporate a variety of foods or tastes that people could actually enjoy. They wanted the food plan to be 100% plant-based, like that book that I showed you, the longevity-based diet. The only thing that's not quote unquote plant-based in this 5 days is the honey that is used to make the nut bars. And they are very, very rich. They're great with your 1 cup of black coffee, I might add. They wanted the 5-day food plan to be equally, if not more so, as effective as fasting and get those regenerative effects. So again, it's 1,100 calories the first day. It's about 750-ish day 2, 3, 4, and 5. And there is a recommended transition diet. We don't recommend patients to do this plan, and then day 6 go out to Chuck E. Cheese's or Popeye's fried chicken, your gastrointestinal system will let you know that it is not happy. Remember, this is not just the latest fad. It's not the latest cabbage diet or whatever the pasta diets we did in the 80s. I'll date myself. It is research. That's what the R&D stands for. It's research and development backed. It's also backed by the National Institute of Health, and it is based on both animal and human studies. So when we look at things on a cellular level, on a biological level, you're looking at day 1 through 5. The moral of the story is to increase circulating stem cells. And you see that later on day 4 and 5. Those stem cells in our peripheral blood participate in rejuvenation and cellular regeneration, again, cleaning up cellular debris. So day 1 is the fasting state, where we're transitioning to a fasting state so we can clean out the worn out cells and regenerate newer and healthier ones. Day 2, usually towards the end of day 2, we switch to a fat burning state, as we already mentioned, ketosis. Day 3, we start cellular cleanup. And by now, most have reached a full-fledged ketosis. And this is where cellular cleansing again begins. The first time ever I did this fast was in 2018, right before Thanksgiving. And I was on day 3 when my computer, which happened to be the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, the day before Thanksgiving, and my computer crashed. And it crashed in a big way. And Sharice's brain was already a tad stressed from being in ketosis. Also, because it was the first time that I did this fast, it made me recognize, and you do recognize, how sloppy you get with your diet in between. So needless to say, I was I was having pretty heavy duty sugar withdrawal. At any rate, day 4, rejuvenation, cellular cleanup continues, and day 5, even more rejuvenation is promoted from within. The big kicker is the stem cells are happy little vacuum cleaners, killing damaged cells in many organs, and then the activated stem cells do replace those old worn out cells. And it's not like this phenomenon stops on day 5. It continues after you get off of the fast. This is why this slide illustrates why is this important for American Heart Health Month. Because after years of experimenting, Dr. Longo's team then moved to human clinical trials. And the clinical trials were published in 2017, and they had 100 healthy subjects in this study. Half of those 100 did one Prolon kit for 3 months in a row, okay? The other half ate their usual diet. And after those 3 months, and keep in mind, it's just 5 days a month. It wasn't like the patients that were on the Prolon arm of the study, it wasn't like they lived on kale and spring water after they got off the fast. They probably did eat healthier because of how they felt, the good feelings they experienced after the fast and during the fast. They probably ate cleaner between. But mind you, no one restricted what they put in their mouth between those 5-day periods. So it was a 3-month period, 5 days per month. There were profound differences seen in blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, and markers in inflammation. There were decreases in the fasting mimicking diet group. And you can see there on the left, those are the 2 slices. Those are a slice of a CAT scan. So if you cut yourself in half, and this is important for those of us who may tend toward being apples rather than pears and gaining weight in our rear end. The CAT scan on the top was before the 3 months. The CAT scan on the bottom shows what a significant reduction in visceral fat. Visceral fat is the fancy word for fat around your organs. Hence, if you have a loved one, you yourself, family member who's been diagnosed with fatty liver disease, this, my friend, is a patented treatment. It's a research-backed treatment. What was even more profound than the drop in the sugar and cholesterol numbers and the weight was a drop in that IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor. Insulin-like growth factor is a biomarker for cancer growth. It's also a marker for increased stem cell production, which again is a marker for regeneration of cells. This is why these guys patented this program, because they wanted to patent it because of the regenerative and rejuvenating effects that they saw. And obviously that is unique data from any other fasting or diet or food plan type program. There's even provocative data, and I can't recommend this as a clinician, but there's even provocative data suggesting that combining the fasting mimicking diet with cancer chemotherapy may lead to improved success and fewer side effects when somebody is going through chemo. So here's the infamous Dr. Longo. He grew up in Northwest Italy. His grandparents were in Southern Italy. This guy, and to me it shows you how smart he was, he came to the United States when he was 16 years old. He actually moved to Texas to go to the University of North Texas because he wanted to study music. And once he was here, and no, I can't even make this up, he was exposed to the standard American diet, the SAD diet. And what he saw, he was amazed by the huge amounts of meat and cheese and sugar and sugary drinks and snacks that we consume here in America. He was also mortified, for lack of better words. His Italian relatives living here in the States were already developing diabetes and heart disease, high blood pressure. Those were ailments that were very common back home in Southern Italy, Northern Italy. He became fascinated with chronic disease, subsequently aging and longevity. So he began studying Okinawa, Japan, Russia, and his studies ultimately led him back to Italy, hence Southern Italy. In Southern Italy, in particular, Sardinia, where you will hear of Sardinian wine, it's home to one of the highest percentage of people over the age of 65 in the world. Between 28 and 29% of people are over the age of 65. It has the highest, that area has the highest proportion of centenarians, people over the age of 100 worldwide. So there's a village, Sardinia, in Southern Italy with 2,000 people. They have 2 people over the age of 100, and they have 2 people over the age of 95. And again, these folks are not lying around in their nursing home bed with the rest of us caring for them and performing their ADLs, keeping them clean and feeding them. These folks have a reasonable level of vibrancy at that advanced age. So hence, he stayed in the States. And again, now he's director of the University of Southern California's Longevity Institute. If you take away anything today, order this book off of Amazon. You can order it hardcover for $5 used. Again, it's a quick read. So to go over things again, scientifically, the fasting mimicking diet benefits lower levels of IGF, insulin-like growth factor, lower levels of circulating blood sugar, higher levels of ketones, which are the product of fat breakdown, and higher levels of something called growth factor inhibitor. And again, the big thing here with aging is decreased IGF-1, because that's been, through research, that seems to be what we want to keep low leveled for aging and disease, or vibrant aging and disease. So we know rejuvenation, wellness, health optimization, stem cell rejuvenation to be precise. Fasting helps trigger apoptosis, and again, that fancy word autophagy, which is cellular cleanup. Some people say, to heck with the rejuvenation, Sharice, I just want to lose some weight. So we have found that, and I have found this to be true with my patients, and I recommend frequency of the fasting mimicking diet differently for different individuals, right? But the fasting mimicking diet is a lovely way to quickly lose some weight, to clean up after the holidays, to clean up after Super Bowl Sunday. Patients that had a normal body mass index, a normal BMI to start with, they lost, and this is based on 3 courses of Prolon over 3 months. They on average lost 5.5 pounds of fat, and they lost about 1.5 inches around their waist. Folks that were overweight or obese saw a much more significant effect, greater than an 8-pound loss. And you're seeing that they sustain this in between. Again, what's profound for our health is its visceral fat, internal organ fat reduction, and again, weight off around the waist. What is the big benefit? We do not lose lean muscle mass. Again, healthy levels. You may be after better blood sugar, better cholesterol. Somebody said you need to get your act together, get your triglycerides down. This can do it, and it will reduce your inflammatory markers. Needless to say, when you get through with the course of Prolon, you will find that those aches and pains, especially if you have had a lot of inflammatory foods in your diet. Inflammatory foods includes inflammatory alcohol, fried foods, fast foods, processed foods. Maybe it's dairy for you, and you are off these things for 5 days. You will be amazed about, my low back is not aching quite the way it does when I'm eating like I normally do. Well, let's go to the next slide. And obviously that ties into an enhancement of overall well-being. I have heard time and time from my patients, as well as what they hear over at Central Drug, folks saying, man, I just felt a lot sharper. I was able, I felt more on it after those 5 days. I always liken it to after I leave the dental office and I've had my teeth polished and flossed and cleaned every 6 months. You don't get in the car and eat jelly beans or something that really gives you that gooey, yucky feeling in your mouth. You feel clean. You also will feel empowered to make healthier choices, because what Prolon has done for Steve and I is we figured out how, and Steve, we'll call him the skinny mini, right? He figured out how often we eat and we are not hungry. So often that you don't recognize what true hunger feels like. Because when you are on those days of 750 calories, when you go to bed at night, your tummy may growl a little bit because it is not used to being even slightly deprived here in America, right? That's why we're all overweight and obese. 70+% of our population is now either overweight or obese in the United States of America. The pandemic was tragically illuminated how extra weight and poor metabolic health, how dangerous that is. It's no secret that those patients fared a lot more poorly when they contracted COVID. So again, I advise my patients, if they want to go by the research, you do 3 fasting mimicking diets over a course of 3 months, 3 boxes, 5 days a month for 3 months. Having personally done this, again, about 6 times, you do have to plan around an event. You have a beloved relative's wedding. Do not plan your fast for Thursday through a Tuesday. I personally have found Sunday through Thursday works well for Steve and I. Monday through Friday works well for Steve and I. We have done it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It was much harder. We probably got more benefit because, like everyone else, we tend to stray the most on weekends and stray from our usual more positive, healthier eating habits. So who shouldn't do Prolon? First off, you should always talk to your provider. Folks who have a serious medical condition or disease, someone who is diabetic, even if you are not on diabetes, you better talk to your provider first. Reach out to Steve, reach out to myself. Patients with a history of significant cardiac disease, in particular those with congestive heart failure, somebody who's pregnant, somebody younger than 18. Although I have a patient in my practice at 17, he would be very safe to do a Prolon. Somebody who has a body mass index less than 18 already, someone allergic who is allergic to nuts or soy. These are people who need to don't go off and purchase a Prolon fasting kit. So do know that Prolon is significantly impactful on your cardiac health, right? I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to take some questions and answers. And let me ask you guys to unmute yourself. That way you can ask whatever is on your mind. And if I don't, if you guys are going to be the quiet crowd, I did get a question. I had referred one of my patients to the cardiologist. I've been after him for 9 months. He had, and I've talked to some of you about this, a coronary artery CAT scan calcium scoring test over at Citizens. Cost about $130. It's a wonderful cardiac screening tool. His calcium score, he scored higher than what we wanted him to score, so he got a trip to the cardiologist. Yes, he can. Yes, he's already on a statin. He came to me on a statin. So you think, well, what else can this guy do? What can he do that's beneficial for his health? He's walking 3 miles a day. Yes, he needs to reduce some weight. Incorporating fasting for him will be tremendously impactful. And he and I have already spoken about that yesterday evening over the phone. Because he kind of let it go in one ear and out the other ear when I talked to him about the dreaded white box 6 or 9 months ago. But again, he had his cardiology visit yesterday and I talked to him on his way home. He is a definite candidate that would benefit from the significant decrease in inflammation and abdominal obesity. That is where men in particular hold their weight. We women postmenopausal, that's where we tend to hold it a little bit more. So therefore, he was a great candidate for this and we will be incorporating it. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to modify the length or to tailor some of the, I guess, the length of the fast, especially if you're like, I'm prone to getting dizzy if my caloric level drops too much?
Right. It's designed so it should not be impactful that way, but yes, we'll definitely get a headache with weaning off of sugar. But in answer to your question, I kind of digress. They said if you end up feeling shaky, there are some fasting bars that you can incorporate. They'll say if worse comes to worst, perhaps eat a few slices of apple. You won't get the regenerative effects, or I can't say that. I can't say I have the science that you'll get the same regenerative effect, having been able to stick strictly to the program for 5 days, but you definitely, if you have to eat an apple slice or two on day 4 because you're feeling lightheaded, the weight loss impact will still be there. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? And I should ask, what particular benefit were you interested in, which prompted you to give up your lunch hour today? Was it the weight loss? Was it perhaps your numbers not being where you'd like your numbers? You can type it in the chat if you're shy, since we all are quiet. I did have another question that someone emailed me this morning. They're not one of my patients. They are a non-insulin dependent diabetic, and they asked me, are they a candidate to do this fast? They're definitely a candidate to do this fast, which is what I responded in my email. I did tell them they should check with their provider, or they should bring me their medicines, or bring Steve their medicines that they are on. They're, again, not on insulin. So we can talk about a safe way for them to incorporate fasting. Because again, them being diabetic, or let's say it's someone who's pre-diabetic, my unfavorite definition, because it lets people think they're off the hook when they're pre-diabetic and not diabetic. At any rate, these are the patients that this is truly impactful. On a routine basis, aspiring to the pescatarian diet, like Dr. Longo depicts in his book, but then importantly, incorporating a 5-day fast here and there. I may have someone who's overweight or obese, or let me back up. Let me give you actual life examples. So let's say you've got Steve Branch, who I always would tease him, and you know how we can do this, we can get away with this when they're your partner, that he's skinny fat, right? So what would I recommend for Steve as a skinny fat person? Well, Steve has borderline cholesterol numbers. We have fixed them, but someone like Steve who wouldn't need to do it for the weight loss impact, I would tell him, soldier through 3 FMD kits for 3 months. Then after that, Steve, let's see what your cholesterol numbers are doing. Then after that, perhaps every 4 months, every 6 months. Someone with normal body weight, a normal BMI, who has genetically, they're not having a problem with their cholesterol or blood sugar, simply for cellular rejuvenation, 1 kit about every 6 months. Someone who is obese, who is pre-diabetic, and we are desperate to keep them from becoming diabetic, or we want to reverse, because yes, people, we can reverse elevated blood sugar. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't reverse disease. You can reverse being diabetic. You may be always predisposed, but yes, you can back off of that. Those patients, I might say, okay, let's talk about a 12-12 time-restricted eating plan, Monday through Monday. Let's talk about 2 days a week doing a 16/8-hour time-restricted eating. Mind you, I'm not messing with your calories. I'm just saying condense those calories into eating from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. 2 days a week. The rest of the days, again, 12-12. And then I'd recommend them in terms of a fasting mimicking diet, if doable for them. I would say do an FMD 3 months in a row, see how they respond to it. Then you see if it's a financially doable thing for them, even though the kit is cost effective. They run great sales now. And when you divide the day cost per food, it's a heck of a lot less than us running to, I don't want to pick on a particular fast food restaurant, or if we run to get a Starbucks, if we run to get a flavored coffee, we add up to $30 pretty quickly over a 5-day period. So it is financially doable. At any rate, back to that pre-diabetic or diabetic person, if they're game, you know, we may try them to do a fast, this kit, every other month, if possible, every 3 months, if possible. You got to work with the patient to meet them where they're at. Another person, it may be a victory if I just get them off of sweet tea and white bread and we do one of these fast every 4 months. That's a victory, because that's an improvement from where they were. And obviously that brings me a lot of joy. But so you look at the individual patient and see where you can meet them, what's doable. So I have some folks tuned in that say they are here for lowering their cholesterol, and they're incorporating a low glycemic diet, a low sugar food plan, along with perhaps fasting. So this definitely is a good option for them. I have someone else who say, yep, was interested in it for weight loss. A little caveat is, if, and this may be a good way to test the waters with your big toe, I do have some patients that say, you know, I can think about doing that, but man, you can't take my coffee away from me. You just can't. And I'll say, okay, I can't tell you if you'll get all the cellular rejuvenation that you'd get if you only had 1 cup of coffee a day, because that's that's how they set up the research study. But I can tell you, you are going to be impacted in terms of weight loss. And they said, that's fine. And that's why they do it. I just had a patient this morning that was here, and she's an avid athlete. She likes to run. She uses, and it was funny, I've never seen her as a patient before. I know her socially. She came in carrying her plastic Prolon water bottle that you mix up your drink that you get that's in the Prolon kit. So that, I thought that was pretty cute. And she too, she said, man, when I'm feeling fluffy or just a little fluffy or flabby, she goes, I'll do one of these kits. And I was like, man, you need to be a commercial. But she uses it as a cleanup, like hence day one, the Monday after Super Bowl is the perfect day to do day one of a fasting mimicking box. Why? Because we feel lousy anyway, because we had that nasty but delicious spinach dip in the bread bowl that somebody brought to the party that's got cream cheese and mayonnaise and dairy, and it's not sitting well with our tummy. So that'll be my challenge. That's a great day to start a prolonged fasting mimicking diet. Then you'd be done by Friday, right? Well, end of Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So this gal, she uses it as a cleanup tool. I do not know her cholesterol numbers yet, but I am soon to find out because she left with a lab slip. Anyone else? Very good. I am grateful that you've spent the hour with me. Please know to reach out if you have any questions or concerns. I want to be a resource. I know Steve next door wants to be a resource. We're all going to try to not succumb to too much chili, cheese, Fritos, and cornbread over the next 48 hours with our Arctic temperatures here in Texas. Stay the path, stay the course. We always feel better because of it. Thank you again for sharing with us and trusting us with your help or with your health. We feel blessed to get to do what we do every day, and I appreciate you. Y'all guys have a good day. I'm gonna end this. Bye.